Oh, we're live. Time to get the Taco Bell. Hey, what's up you guys, it's me Sparxxyy and welcome back to another Life is Strange video. I haven't filmed a Life is Strange video in a very long time, especially a theory video. So today we're going to be talking about Deck 9's new project, which has been spoke about for about a year, and I did make a couple videos in the past, not necessarily about it, but I made videos touching upon it and the possibility of a Before the Storm 2, which I'm going to talk about today. So if you've not been reading the articles, Square Enix and Deck 9 are working together, and if you do not know, Square Enix and Deck 9 actually were the ones who did Before the Storm. So today I'm just going to be talking about the possibility of there being a Before the Storm 2. Before I start, I just want to say there are going to be major spoilers for Life is Strange 1, 2 and Before the Storm and Captain Spirit if I do end up talking about that, so that's just a little bit of a warning for you guys, just so you're warned. So if you've not played any of the games and you do not want it spoiled for you, it's just a warning to click off this video because I will be talking candidly about what's happened in the storylines of those games. So I feel like a Before the Storm 2 would make a lot of sense. Nobody knows what happened in between the end of Before the Storm and the start of the first Life is Strange game, and there's roughly 3 years in between that time gap. Now I feel like right from the bat, if they were going to do a Before the Storm 2, it would be about Rachel. Now as we know, Rachel is unfortunately dead, which makes me very sad because that scene, if you know what I mean, that scene in Life is Strange, whoo, still pulls on the heartstrings, that does, hits hard. But I feel like it would be about Rachel and the possibility that she could have powers. And as we know in Before the Storm, there is a scene where she literally screams down a tree and the fire just spreads and causes a massive forest fire, which is extremely strange and not normal, and even Chloe herself is very startled during this scene, and even Rachel, she's, you know, obviously very upset because she just found out that her father is having an affair, but even herself, she's very shocked with the destruction she's just caused. And there's also a scene which not many people have noticed, and I don't know if it's just me overanalyzing things, but at the dinner table when Chloe and Rachel's dad are arguing, there are candles lit and you can see Rachel getting increasingly agitated and stressed, and the candles on this table piece are just getting more and more, like the flame is getting more and more sort of aggravated, is that the right word? Like there's a lot more movement there, so I feel like Rachel does have powers. I can't necessarily determine or figure out what kind of powers, but I feel like it is very similar to Daniel's. Not saying that she has, you know, like borderline telekinesis, but the powers can be aggravated through emotions, and I feel like that's the same for Max as well in the first game. Obviously when she is traumatized or is daydreaming, she'll tend to see things such as the tornado and the storm and things like that. But obviously when Daniel gets frustrated, he can't control his powers and everything just sort of goes up in the air, and you know, he causes destruction but not knowing it. And I feel like that's the same with Rachel. She has powers, but it's just a matter of controlling her emotions, whereas if she can't control her emotions, then her powers will just unleash. Although in Before the Storm, with that forest fire, that's the only time that you see solid evidence that Rachel does have powers, and obviously it's never spoke about in the game and it's never really fully hinted again. I mean, I haven't played Before the Storm in about 2 years because I just can't bring myself to play it because it's a personal story, but you know, I just can't bring myself to play it at the moment. But it's never directly confirmed that she does have powers, but it's hinted, and I think that if they were to do a Before the Storm 2, they would have to touch on that, the potential of her having powers, and I think it would be very interesting and obviously fit the whole entire Life is Strange premise with a protagonist having powers, you know, Max, Daniel, and obviously in Before the Storm, I guess Rachel, but Chloe don't have powers. Unless it's powers of being a complete bad... Okay, that's really cringy. I was gonna say badass, but cringy. In Life is Strange 1, there is a lot of talk about what happened in between those 3 years. Obviously, Chloe talks a lot about it to Max, and Max obviously gets very jealous. But I think that it's still very vague. Obviously, there is a lot of reference that there was a relationship between Rachel and Frank, which makes me mad because I am Amber Price for life, so seeing Rachel with anybody but Chloe just kind of makes me mad. And I think it would also be a good opportunity to develop on not just the story of Rachel and Chloe, but with Nathan Prescott as well. And I know that's very random, but in Before the Storm, Nathan isn't as much of a monster as he is in the first game. He's an absolute monster in that game. Like in Life is Strange, the first one, God, what a dick. But in Before the Storm, he's not as bad. I mean, he's obviously a little bit sketchy, but him and Rachel were really good friends, and then he just seems very, well, he's messed up in the first game because he knows what happened to Rachel. I want to see, and I think the rest of the community want to see as well, so what happened when Jefferson started working at Blackwell Academy, and was there actually a relationship between Rachel and Mr. Jefferson? Was there a relationship between Frank and Rachel? Was there potentially a relationship between Nathan and Rachel? And them talking more about the relationship between Chloe and Rachel. I think I would be more happy playing Before the Storm 2 and playing as Chloe, because I guess it is still sort of Chloe's story, kind of like what they've done with Life is Strange 2. So the story is about Sean and Daniel, but Daniel is main character in a way because he's the one with powers and he's the one you've, you know, got to protect, but you're playing as Sean. Whereas I think if they were to do a Before the Storm 2, they could potentially follow through with that mechanic. You know, the game is about Rachel, but you're playing from Chloe's point of view. Not only is stuff happening to Rachel, but things are happening to Chloe as well, you know, still dealing with the loss of her father, you know, drugs, not being in school, having a rocky relationship with her mum and obviously David. So I think there is a lot to touch on in there, and obviously dealing with Max and losing contact with Max. So I think it would be really, really interesting. I've said that about 100 times. I've not scripted this video, but so much has happened in between those 3 years. So what, Before the Storm was set in 2010, and the first Life is Strange game is set in 2013, and just so much happened. What we do know, obviously Rachel was murdered, and it had something to do with Mr. Jefferson, and it had something to do with Frank, I guess, in a way, because there was sort of a relationship between Rachel and Frank. There is solid proof of that. Whether there's a relationship between Jefferson and Rachel is very unclear. I know Jefferson says that there was a relationship between him and Rachel, but that guy's a psychopath, so you can't really believe everything he says. For all we know, he could have totally tricked Rachel into being like, oh yeah, like, I'll take you to Los Angeles, but there not actually being a physical or romantic relationship between them. He could have just tricked Rachel into the dark room, because obviously being quite young, quite vulnerable, he could have just tricked her in there and then her have no relationship with him at all, and then him just murder her, but it being an accident. So I don't know, thinking about it messes me up. At the same time though, I kind of don't want to know, because Rachel is my favourite Life is Strange character, so I feel like that time span and watching and playing and living that would be torture for me, because Rachel obviously goes through a lot of crap, you know, she gets murdered, and then you have to see Chloe kind of deal with her going missing but not knowing that she's been murdered. The game wouldn't have to be set across 3 years, but the game would have to be set just before she goes missing, like in the height of when things start getting a little bit fishy with the relationship with Jefferson, the relationship with Frank, and how she was involved with the Vortex Club and why the Vortex Club got so toxic, and all of these rumours that people say about Rachel in the first game. It's just extremely messed up, and it doesn't seem like it's true because she's a completely different person in Before the Storm. Obviously playing Life is Strange 1, people say, oh, Rachel's a slut, Rachel is this, Rachel sleeps with everybody, Rachel is a bitch, blah blah. But in Before the Storm, everybody loves her, everybody worships the ground she walks on, so the fact that then she dies and people are like, oh, she's a slut, she's a bitch, she's this, and all the graffiti and the way people talk about her. There are some people who say nice things about her, but also a large portion that don't say nice things about her. Obviously her and Victoria never really got along, because Rachel totally sasses the hell out of Victoria during that part in the Tempest when you're in the tent. You even have an option to drug her, which is very messed up, so I didn't choose that option, by the way. I just let Rachel outsass her. So yeah, I think Before the Storm 2, to sum up and add a bit of a verdict, I think that the game should be about what happened in between Before the Storm and Life is Strange at some point. Not saying it should span over 3 years, because obviously it'd be difficult to develop a game over 3 years and keep it consistent, you know. Perhaps at the start of when things started to get dodgy, and to see what Chloe went through and what Rachel went through and why the characters developed into what they did, such as Nathan in Before the Storm seemed like quite a sweet guy, a couple problems but sweet guy, and then him suddenly just turn into this absolute bastard in the first Life is Strange game. I know it's explained, but it's still very sudden and vague, so I feel like that would be a good opportunity to revisit and better explain why Nathan was the way he was in the first game. There are obviously potential risks doing this, such as doing a Before the Storm 2, because there was a lot of inconsistency issues regarding Before the Storm and Life is Strange. Certain things were said in Life is Strange, and then certain things were said in Before the Storm that didn't quite match up, so the games didn't really connect properly. So hopefully they've learned from that mistake, and if they do a Before the Storm 2, they can learn from that and do a better job at making sure they know what information's been said in the previous games, but with what's been said in Before the Storm specifically and Life is Strange, and then to just be able to make sure that all that information correlates and there's no inconsistencies. So yeah, pretty nervous. This might not even be a Life is Strange game. Who knows? It might be something completely different, but I really do hope it is a Life is Strange project regarding Chloe and Rachel, because I absolutely loved them too. I think that Chloe and Rachel are canon. Sorry, Pricefield shippers, but I do. I think they're canon, and I would love to see another game talking about and showing their relationship and it falling apart, which is sad, but I think it's interesting, and it will fill in a lot of plot holes, because obviously Before the Storm had a lot of plot holes. Before the Storm made Life is Strange have plot holes, and Life is Strange made Before the Storm have plot holes, so it was just a bit, it was poorly researched, I guess, so hopefully they learned from their mistake with that. That's really all I've got to say. I've filmed this and not scripted it at all, so I really do apologise about that. All we know is that this project is coming out sort of, they've been developing it for 2 years now. If we look at the Life is Strange timeline, Life is Strange 1 was 2015, and then Before the Storm was 2017, and then Life is Strange 2 was 2018/2019. So if they've been working on it for 2 years, then that means they would have started development shortly after Life is Strange Before the Storm and roughly before Life is Strange 2. Maybe that's why there was such a long wait between the episodes for Life is Strange 2. Not because they were working extra hard, because they totally were, but because they also had another Life is Strange project in there. And I've also noticed that they've kept the Life is Strange community quite alive with all these interviews and, you know, backstories on the development of the second game. So it makes me want to believe that this new project that Nine and Square Enix are working on is Life is Strange related, but we can only hope. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed this very mumbled video. Sometimes I just like talking from the top of my head, because then it's raw feelings and emotions about what I think of it and my initial thoughts. So that's the reason why I tend to not script these kind of videos, because I just like to let my raw emotion and raw opinion come out without it being scripted and changed and structured. So I hope you don't mind that. Anyway guys, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed, leave a like and comment what you think this new project is, and if it is Life is Strange related, if it is going to be about Chloe and Rachel and what happened in between that time. And if not, I also would like to know, because I'd like to read your guys' conspiracy theories on this. Anyway, for the 10th time, thanks for watching, and I will talk to you guys in my next video. Goodbye and take care.